I think we have a bit of a situation now because this gentleman here just said that rather than lecturing, he would rather be want to be lectured by you. But I guess there's enough stuff to talk about anyway. So please join me in welcoming Roots Manuva. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Roots Manuva, but I think a good start is always to play some music, and we have a record here that I would love to play, and yeah, let's do it. So this is a record of your first album, in it?
Yeah, that was way back in
99?
99. Well, it was probably made in 98.
But I reckon you released music before that, didn't you? So remember?
Oh yeah. Like the first. Oh, there's some horrible records somewhere. Some white
Where
labels. I hope no one in this room has got any copies.
But seriously, do you remember when was like the first time you hit a recording studio to lay down?
Yeah.
When was that?
The very first time I went to a studio was probably when I was about 15. And it was in a place called Music Works, which is in Stockwell, like Stockwell, Brixton. It's like a community studio that just had like a 4-track, some Casio keyboards, and a 606. Is it 606? I think it's a 606 drum machine.
But you were there to record lyrics, or were you there to
produce
music?
We was there to make a noise and experiment with what was there. So what we ended up doing was like pushing the record, trying to get a record, James Brown record, in time with the drum machine, and then not quite being in time, and then using keyboards around it to kind of get some sense of timing to it. You know, it's like a collage of crazy out of time stuff. And then a little squawky rap over the top of it.
Do you remember which James Brown record it was?
It was the one where I think it was the one where he's talking about a woman. Well, it's a man's world. Yeah. It's a man's world. Yeah, a man's world. Yeah. A man's world. Yeah.
So for all of us who are not
speed it up.
Okay. So for all of us who are not from this wonderful city, could you tell me what kind of place Stockwell is? It's in South London, I guess. So maybe you could give us a bit of an idea of what this place is like and how you grew up there.
That's harder. Stockwell was just like an inner city. It's got good transport links. It's just another inner city.
So what kind of music were you into then back then, besides James Brown, obviously? I mean, what kind of stuff did influence you? For me, it's kind of hard to tell because obviously everybody who's into hip-hop sort of grew up on American rap back then. Was that your main influence as well, or was it already a UK stuff, or what kind of music were you into?
I was into a bit of everything, you know, because like growing up, like it was primarily like reggae. I mean, when I say growing up, I mean like before hitting the double numbers, it was primarily reggae, and then I think.
So that comes from your parents because.
Oh no, they didn't listen to reggae. They listened to Jim Reeves and decent music with a chord and a melody and a structure, and you know, gospel music. You know, and I was kind of more into. Really into more noisy music, as they would say.
What was it that attracted you to the noise kind of thing? What kind of noise and why noise?
I remember seeing Art of Noise. Is it Art of Noise? A band called Art of Noise?
Yeah, there's a band called Art of Noise.
I remember seeing them on, I think it might have been Blue Peter.
Yeah.
And they was talking about this thing called MIDI. And how on MIDI anybody could make music. And I was like, wow, because I'm a bit of a, you know, I'm in for any, you know, if I could get away without having to do my violin lessons, then You know, that kind of made my ears kind of go up. Because the first thing I did in a serious way, serious effort for music was violin lessons. But it's just violin lessons for like a 9-year-old who's the size of a 16-year-old, because I was always big for my age. Yeah. It really wasn't cool.
Doesn't feel right, yeah.
And violins are quite delicate, and you know, hitting people with a antique violin, you know, it wasn't a good look. You know? So,
when did you actually stop playing the violin? Was that only when you were 9, or did you play?
Yeah, but I did about a couple of terms on it, but it just wasn't.
Could you still play it?
I can still bowl. I can still.
Do you do that from time to time?
Yeah, I now collect violins, but
really,
yeah.
But
they're good investments. I wish I still had the one that I had at school.
Yeah. Let's talk about that later. Maybe going back to that time. There's this one story of you being like 8 or 9 years old and walking past the sound system with your mother, and in a way being fascinated by that. Is that the kind of answer you made up because all the journalists are like, yeah, when did you first get in touch with music? Or is that actually how much truth is in this story? It's the kind of Wikipedia story that you find on there, right?
No. That is a true experience. It's not the first time I heard of sound systems. Sound systems were always there. You know, sound systems were there playing at weddings, at funerals, at parties. This is like, I can't remember the first time I ever saw a sound system, but it was something that I was always drawn to. Like if I was at a wedding, I have vivid memories of just standing, looking at the sound systems. You know, just looking, just seeing what, you know, I just loved the wires, the way they used to stack the sound. You know, in those days it wasn't like 2 turntables, it was just 1 turntable, and loads of amps that were probably built from hand or reconditioned, and you know, looking rather tight. You know?
So, I mean, you already touched on that a bit, but do you remember what exactly attracted you to sound systems? Was it like the technical side of things? Was it more like the sheer power of the bass, or the kind of music that was played on there? What was it that made you want to do something like that as well?
There wasn't nothing specific. It just always seemed. It's always been there. It's always been had a presence in my life. And you know, growing up in Stockwell, there was, you know, loads of free festivals, and you know, like mini carnivals that happened all the way through the year, and you know, at school fetes, and you know, it just always seemed to be there. I can't remember a time when there wasn't any.
So you're 15 now and going into this community center and recording music. Could you tell why you actually wanted to record music? Was it just a fun thing, or was there anything you wanted to express, or anything you wanted to kind of point, you wanted to bring across, or something like that? I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to like learn why you actually started doing music rather than just consuming music, because everybody in this room at some point started doing music, and I think everybody might have their reasons to do so, and I'm just curious what your reason was.
It was just a fascination with the technology, and also a more vain kind of impetus, as you know, and an arrogance of listening to other music that was made at the time, thinking, well, I've already been told on the telly that anybody can do it, so I'll have a go.
Was there anybody in like your friend of yours or somebody who was around you who actually did it and you looked up to and sort of influenced you? Or did it all come through listening to recorded music or music on the television, or I don't know, American rap on cassettes or something? Or was there anybody who actually influenced you directly?
Oh yeah, loads, countless people. Mm-hmm.
For example?
There was a local crew come from Stockwell called Hijack, and they were signed to a label, a British hip hop label called, well, a British music label called Music Alive. Always liked what they did. And another crew called London Posse. Yeah.
I reckon it was always kind of an issue whether you were listening to US rap or UK rap. There were all these discussions. I actually remember when I bought your first album in a record store in Soho, And the guys sort of even laughed at me because they were like, nah, that ain't real hip hop, blah, blah. You need to listen to like American shit, whatever, that sort of vibe. And I remember there were a lot of discussions going on. Was that ever a question for you? Whether like, oh, this is UK stuff, this is US stuff? Or was it just like, this is music and this is music that I like? Or was it difference for you? Like when you were listening to Hijack, where these are people from my neighborhood, or listening to, I don't know, Rakim, who obviously isn't from your neighborhood?
I don't know, it's like, I can remember, you know, amongst the social group and peers, being kind of, being the butt of jokes because I liked the hip hop, the local hip hop more than the American hip hop. I look forward to listening to it, even at a time when it probably weren't even that good. But I always liked it, you know.
Yeah. Do you think it wasn't that good?
There was a time when it really didn't find its feet. It was just totally just trying to mimic a weird place. It didn't even exist. I don't know what accent people were using or what part of America they were trying to be like. But it was just like it was a very strange sound. But I think it was true to the whole DIY, anybody can do it ethic of hip hop, the nature of hip hop, because anybody can have a go and everybody can be a part of it.
So did you ever fake fantasy American accent in your life, or did you have the confidence right away to say, look, this is my language, this is the language I speak to with my mother, or speak in with my mother, so why can't I just rap in their language? Or did you have your humble fake UK beginning, fake US beginnings as well?
I don't think I was never any good at an American accent anyway, so it was all in vain, and all the first slang that I always fall on lyrically is like Jamaican patois. So all my raps had, even from the beginning, they had a lot of patois in it, which was that was even weird for my own friends. I was like, you need to get some more kind of transatlantic slang, you know.
Where did you get the confidence from to just rap their way? I mean, nobody else. Really.
It wasn't even confident. It was just an accident. It was all I could do, you know. Because I think the first experiments that I had as a vocalist, they lent more towards dancehall, but amongst dancehall audiences, it wasn't Jamaican enough, you know. So always kind of, I didn't find a place in either that's straight hip hop. You know, there were local kids that could do a better sounding New York accent than I could at the time, you know.
Would you agree that people had, like, musicians, rappers, artists, whatever from the UK had more of a hard time to get accepted amongst their peers back then than they do now? Like if you were a rapper in the late 90s, rap with a British accent, whatever, did what you did, do you think it was harder for somebody like you to get acceptance than it is now?
Well, that's a hard question. I don't know how you compare the times to now. I think now, just the general amount of time that the culture and the templates and the blueprints have been around, it gestates in a different way. So people's air and the turnover of the people that work within the industry is totally different to it is 10 years ago, and totally different to how it was 20 years ago. You know, coming from the consideration that when hip hop first come around, it wasn't considered something, it wasn't even done as something that was supposed to be recorded. So when the recordings were recorded and sold as records, it was considered as noise, and it would be the passing trend that will pass away. But the whole audio science, the application of the audio science is now just as refined as anything, as a ballad or a piece of jazz, you know?
But still, I mean, we're talking late 90s here, so that was sort of, or like second half of the 90s, so that was sort of the commercial peak of American hip hop in it, like with, I don't know, the Jay-Z's and Biggie's and Fuji's of this world. So it wasn't like hip hop was any sort of obscure underground rocket science phenomenon anymore.
But I think in England there wasn't much of a success rate of translating product that was developed here into sales. You know, they spent loads of money signing up this, that, and the other, and it never really translated.
Yeah. So, well, I know you're a humble person and all of that, but would you agree that to a certain amount you contributed to changing that? Like, if you listen to One Extra these days, or look at the charts or whatever, would you agree that a lot of the stuff wouldn't be there if it wasn't for you? In all humbleness,
I think it's in all humbleness. It is answer that your question. No, I think it's just more due to people's palates being just more opened up, because it takes a while for you to get into the whole sound of different accents doing hip hop, or even singing, you know.
So if you see what's happening with a lot of like UK-based artists right now, does that make you proud in a way? Not talking about the quality of the music or whether you think the end-ups should be awarded a Grammy award or something like that. I mean, that's not the question here, but does it make you proud in a way?
Give them 2 Grammys. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, because it's come. This journey has arrived from a start point that it was noise, you know. The American hip hop was noise to the traditional British A&R, you know, fraternity, whoever they are, and then let alone British hip hop. British hip hop was a joke, or a person trying to rap or rhythmically talk over a record, you know. And now it's a runaway beast, you know.
What did your parents think about you speaking on noise?
Yeah, but, you know, my mum always thought I had a refined. It's of a refined taste, isn't it? You know, because it's not. You know, she likes more melody. Yeah. You know, but you know, it's because mainstream hip hop is so successful. You know, they slowly have accepted it. You know? They don't necessarily like it, or they don't like the things to say, or the choice of soundscapes that I choose to mess with. You know?
So, okay, 99, the one record we were talking about before, like brand new secondhand, came out on a label called Big Data. I don't know if you're familiar with the label called Big Data. It sort of started out as a hip hop sub label of Ninja Tune, I guess. So, why did it take you so long to actually release a proper album? Almost, if you say that we were like 14, 15 to make your first recordings, and you were more than 10 years older when the first album came out. So why did it take you that long?
Probably because I never actually. There was never an urgency to release an album. There was never anyone waving any money for me to do it, you know. You know, I had loads of ideas, just like probably most people in this room got 1,000,001 ideas, and it's just the situation appeared.
So when you listen to Brand New Secondhand, it feels like, you know, the classic hip hop debut record in a way. Like, it's very pure, very raw, even in sounds, but it has that one vibe, like, you know, the Illmatic type of hip hop record, the classic couple of tracks, you could almost see the basement where it was recorded in, and it has that vibe. Was it actually a defined period of time when you recorded it in, or was it more of a collection of ideas that you had throughout all those years? Yeah,
it's a collection of ideas. Yeah, but it was, you know, some of them were like re-tinkered with, and but it was a collection of re-tinkered ideas between like 97 to early 99.
Maybe you could listen to another record of that particular album, which actually you choose yourself. It's that one.
What's that?
Was probably recorded some like 12 years ago, something like that. Could you remember what kind of mindset, state of mind you were in back then? Or is it even that far away that you can't even tell?
It's really mad because that tune was done down the road, actually. A little studio that I think it's actually on Tooley Street,
really?
the other end
Where's
of Tooley
that?
Street. In a little studio, it was called Downtown Bass. It don't exist anymore. So yeah, I can remember.
I think when the record came out, everybody, besides the fact that nobody could believe that a rapper actually raps about eating cheese on toast, I think I found that line in every fucking review of the particular album.
Cheese on toast.
Yeah, so obviously it was quite a spectacular thing for you British people, but I think it was
a stupid thing to talk
it is,
about.
yeah.
Rappers say so much different stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, but obviously that line hit the strike with
Just
a lot of people. Yeah.
lazy journalism.
But I mean, except for that, I think a lot of people described it as a dark record. Would you agree it is a dark record?
Which one?
The brand new second.
Brand new second. No, that sounds bright to me. There's some optimistic strings there.
Yeah.
I don't know. At the time, I was doing what made me happy. You know, I had my weed money, I had my beer money, I had my chicken and chips money. I was fine. You know.
Yeah, fair enough. How did you actually do it? I mean, you did most of the production on there as well. Mm-hmm. Was it always you alone in the studio? How did the whole thing come together?
Yeah, a lot of the night times was, you know, I had access to a studio in Brixton, and I was just there, just in the night times, just, you know, I had a lot of the demos for years. You know, even that track, The Emotion 5000, was a song that came out 4 years prior in a different form. Yeah. You know, it's like redone. That was a recreation of a earlier release. You know, but it was done with strings. Yeah. You know, we tried to take it to where I always heard it going in the first place. You know, like the demo came out on a limited edition, like 500 press.
No. So what kind of equipment did you work on? But we were talking about that before, and you said you're sort of fascinated with what's going on in like the digital world right now and all of that. So what were you working on back then? Was that MPC?
Well, back then, for the album, Cold Cut, the guys who owned the label, they borrowed me an S1000, and I bought like a second-hand Atari 1040. And that was basically it. Yeah. I didn't have anything, and just that, and I don't think I had a mixer. No. So it's just like, you know, taking sounds of cassette tape and all kinds of mini disc. And was that there? I think that was before mini disc.
I think I never had a mini disc. Do you even know mini discs? You never know with these young people nowadays. I recently was at a record shop and there were like two people, I don't know, 20-year-olds who were talking about cassettes, and the guy was like, yeah, I've seen these things before at my father's place. Like, really, what is that? Just couldn't believe it. I felt very, very, very old back then. So that was production, but lyrics. Do you ever write down lyrics? I think a lot of the lyrics that you have, even though they are lyrical, they still feel that like they have a certain freestyle vibe to it. Would you agree on that?
I try to write. I do write lyrics down, but you know, even when they're in front of me, I don't always say them correctly. You know, so you know, I'm always what I try to capture in front of the microphone is never. It's never technique. It's always style over the technique or style over the content. So, you know, even if there's a blatant grammatic mistake, but the feeling's good, it has to stay. You know?
Generally speaking, how do you work on music? Like, I think a lot of rappers, they say, okay, now it's album time. They pick 16 beats, they start writing, record, that's it. Is that the way you work, or is it usually go to the studio every day, do stuff?
I admire that. Over the years, I've met people that are so focused and can do that, you know. But I've never, ever been able to do that. It's all pretty random for me. Yeah. You know? And it constantly changes until the day when it gets mastered.
Why is that? Because it's hard for you to be satisfied with your work, or?
No, it's just because it's ideas come at different times, and you know, different songs make a body of, you know, just one tune can turn a whole sequence of tunes into a whole different experience.
So if you listen to that album now, I don't know if you ever do that, but what do you think about it now? Like, what kind of emotional relationship do you have to that body of work?
Yeah, I think I always I like it. Always surprises me because it still interests me now. You know, in all its deficiencies that I've learnt through the years, and the things that I would avoid straight away now, or seek out studio facilities to iron out. Yeah. You know, or even take days to recreate now when I could do it quite easily. Yeah. You know.
Do you have an example for that? Something that you would iron out these days?
Well, there's not such. I'm kind of nowadays. I ain't so much about. I'm more into subtleties rather than, you know, like on the Juggle Things proper. That bass is just huge. I don't think I don't have enough guts to do a tune like that with the bass being so. It just seems so. It seems ridiculous to me. My ear has changed. Yeah. You know, it would be more. I'm more into more subtle things now. I don't just turn everything up and go, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Well, talking about less subtle things, though, on the second album that you made, there was this one record, which I think is safe to say changed a few things in your life, and might be, yeah, probably the biggest record of your career so far.
Not in chart placements.
So, no, yeah, I know. But I mean, if you play it out, you could see people's reactions, and it's always, I mean, it's kind of obvious.
It's people always talk about it like it was this huge record. I got to do another one like that, but it never got no radio play, and it didn't really show that much. It never got A-listed or anything, you know. But it's a very strange piece of music, and it was made as. Like I was mucking about. This was like the good days. After the release of the first album, you know, there was more money flowing about, and they literally, with the first album, they couldn't get me out of the studio. With the second album, my management and the label had to drag me to the studio, and this song was just a result of being in the studio for like 3 weeks and not doing anything, and just having 4 hours to bung the quickest thing I could together to show them and say, yep, so I could get some more money.
Maybe we should just play it quickly so people know what we're talking about, because this might be a bit cryptic. When you come in a club now, and I don't know if you ever go to clubs, but imagine you going into a club and hearing that record, what do you feel?
I always think it's been mastered wrong.
So who mastered it?
I don't know what his name was, but it's just way too loud, man. It doesn't. The medium wasn't right. I've only ever heard it sound right on about 3 or 4 systems. You know? I always think like the compressors really just go bonkers in a club, and it just starts to it just sounds wrong to me. Yeah.
So when you do a show, and I think you do quite a lot of shows, have you ever thought, like, before the show, tonight I'm not going to play this record?
Yeah, always. That's always the thing, you know. And I hate. Now we do shows with more musicians and stuff. Yeah. And I hate the way how the band relies on witness. You know, it really gets on my nerves. They'll do a shit show and say, as long as you do witness, we're okay. You know, I'd rather do a show without it. You know?
So the gift and the curse, I guess. But you said before that, like, financially it didn't change that much, but in a way, obviously it did, because it drew a lot of attention, and I think there was like the Mercury Prize nomination and everything, a lot more interviews happening, a lot more attention, generally speaking, from the public. How did you deal with that? I think with a lot of the interviews that you did for like the third album, you didn't seem too happy with like the whole music industry type of thing, and you didn't seem in a very good place back then when it comes to dealing with that sort of mechanisms or people. How did you feel about this sudden attention of people who obviously weren't really familiar with what we
It
were
was
doing,
just-
where you're from, and all of that?
It's just being out of my, comfort zone. It was, it's probably good as a human being to experience that and think of more than just your immediate surroundings. Because coming back to the very first record, I wasn't thinking further than Brixton, let alone the rest of the world. I was just thinking about doing something that, and then to be making records and be nominated for Brits and Mercury Awards and all that kind of, it was just like, wow, this is really weird, because I'm the underlying text of what I'm doing is bollocks to mainstream society, and then I'm being courted by it. It's like it's a bit weird, and being on an independent label, that's an artist on an independent label that's being courted by bigger labels, and it's like, Jesus, the whole Roots Manuva thing was just supposed to be my little baby, and it become way bigger than I ever thought it could be, and I couldn't really get any control over it. It's like it won't go. It's the, what you're saying, the gift and the curse. It won't go away. Yeah. And even when I'm doing what I consider to be my most kind of objectionable punk rock esque music, making really ugly, crazy music, for the piss heads and the weed heads, and talking absolute, quite crazy anti-establishment stuff. I couldn't understand why the mainstream press would be interested in that.
Yeah. Did you mentioned before that obviously you were and still are signed to Big Data, I reckon, and which is kind of a small independent label, and especially by that time you were by far the biggest artist on there. Did you feel any pressure like that, like all of a sudden like jobs relied on you and all of that? Did that affect your recording and like your creativity in any way?
Jobs relied on me.
There's people there's people working for Big Data.
But then cold. The bosses of the label are cold cut. There's some clever people. They ain't relying on whether I make a record, whether their company survives. It's like no, I never felt that too.
Was it ever an option for you to sign to like a major record?
Of course, that's what I was saying. That's what I was talking about. Is being on. You signed to the independent. Yeah. I signed to an independent label for that kind of for that the comfort of being, the pleasure of selling a lot less than being on the major, but less pressure and nothing to do with the mainstream, just maintaining. But then toying with the idea of further crossover, it kind of, it still is, it still is quite a hard aspect of the whole creative circumference,
So do you actually think about all those things when you record music or write music or whatever? Is that something that you actually think about? Like, ooh, could that be popular? Wouldn't it be popular? I don't know. Should I do that? Should I do this? Almost sounded like that.
Not really, no. I don't think. No, there's no conscious thought, will it be popular? It's just like, it's just various needs to get various nuances out there, Most of it starts off by frustration, if everybody was sampling classical strings, I would sample classical windpipe or bagpipes or something. I'm always trying to be the future rather than just run after the trends of the day.
Maybe let's listen to a record from the third album, which was, by some people considered it to be like sort of, I don't know, the next step in your musical evolution or whatever. You sang a lot on there and like experimented with other sounds and all of that. So maybe listen to another bit of music here. So if I get that right, the lyrics, is that you making fun of the notion of other people, you being the sort of deep rapper?
No, it's not actually. It's just
So what are you talking about on that record?
this thing's coming on top, isn't it? Just horror. It's like it's not. It's just done for effect, you know. It's just it's supposed to be the sonic embodiment of an intense episode of paranoia.
Could you explain that?
That's what the song just did.
Yeah.
You know? How do I explain it?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not about. I'm not saying I am deep. You know, when you say things are getting, if you ever would say that, things are getting awfully deep.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of an evasive statement. It's nobody actually says that, do they? It's awfully deep. You know, it's like.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't even know what that was supposed to mean. That's why I was asking.
It's just a use of language in a way that's kind of, it's done for the onomatopoeic essence of the I'm getting twisted in language here now. It's just done. It's done for effect, you know.
So when you record a track like that, obviously has massive energy, works perfectly on stage, works in a lecture hall, works for head nodding, works for everything, pressure release, whatever. So what kind of state of mind are you in when you record something like that? Do you need to prepare yourself for something like that? Do you hang out at the studio? Like, is that recorded at night, or is it you come into the studio at like 3 PM, writing it down, doing it, going home?
No, it's like done at home, and it could be that was probably because that was done at a really good time for me. You know, I think that was like after buying the first house and living in the suburbs, and that was probably that specifically was me making a concerted effort to get back to the grit and just that whole essence of working the monsters and working the ghost and confronting fears.
Were you ever afraid of sort of losing this sort of grit and anger?
Yeah,
and all of
yeah,
that?
definitely. That was probably what that album was all about.
Yeah.
Awfully Deep was, you know, was like I wasn't at a stage where I was ready to get the wet look and start wearing silk pants and driving Cadillacs. Yeah. You know, I still wanted the mashed up Cortina and the really messed up 20 quid Reebok. You know, I just wanted to have that, you know.
So how many records are there, like unreleased records, where you actually tried to do it but didn't manage to get that kind of feeling across? I mean, I imagine it's kind of hard, like when you're in a good place, in a good mood, how do you record angry music? Like, how do you physically do that?
That's
a good one, but how many bad ones are there?
Of that. There are lows where, there's countless where I'm messing about and not taking it or not trying to go. But, you know, it's still a fascination of mine. I listen to a lot of what I consider $1 million music, you know, a lot of that silky R&B, and I'm amazed by the application of audio finesse, you know, just the way how they get the dynamics going, you know, just how well like a Mariah Carey vocal is recorded. What attention to detail would they have to do to get my voice to go in such a vast range, you know.
Yeah. But that's more like a technical fascination rather than the actual music, more like the level of production.
I still like the music, but it's a technical fascination, and the love for the emotional essence of the music is all part of the.
What else you up to? Yeah, what else you up to these days? I mean, obviously you could always tell there's a reggae influence there. Obviously you're a rapper in the first place. So what else are you listening to these days?
Everything, folk. I'm always listening to bits and pieces. You know, I like Kate Bush. You know, I like Sade. But then I always, you know, I listen to what they call dubstep and glitch or whatever. Is it glitch? I don't know what Mohawk. What's his name? Mohawk. What's his name?
Hudson Mohawk, yeah.
Hudson Mohawk. That stuff. Whatever he's doing.
Is he in the room?
Ben up.
Is he here?
I listen to it all because I get loads of it, you know. Yeah. And you know, being on a label, being connected to a label like Ninja Tune, they're always doing this weird genre bending stuff and traveling around, you know.
So are you the type of person that sits down at the computer and looks for new music like 2 hours a week?
Not 2 hours a week, but yeah, I look for new music. Yeah.
2 hours a week is not that much, is it?
Probably more than that.
4 hours per day or something.
I do like to actually find and be drawn to something. You know? Especially now, as you can't go to a record. It's really hard to go to a record shop. And it was hard going to a record shop back in the day. So
why's that?
know? Because you could never. You either a record salesperson would be so good that they dance and they play everything. It's like, yeah, this is wicked, and you just go back home with like a stack of records that don't sound any good when you get home. Or they don't even what they treat you like you go into the shop and they treat you. They literally tell you to get out the shop. Yeah. It's like. So there's just no service in England, you know? Especially London.
So that's the big advantage of like the computer age. When something listens good on those shitty speakers, it must be a good record. I once heard that Jay-Z said that if a record doesn't sound good on like a cheap Walkman, it's not a good record. Would you agree with that?
No, I totally disagree. Because there are records that have just made for certain sound systems, you know, and Witness is one of those tunes. You know?
There's another record here we were talking about before, which I think represents a lot of the stuff we were talking about now. It's the Rhythm and Sound. I don't know if you're familiar with Rhythm and Sound. It's like two guys from Berlin who sort of come from a techno background, but from a reggae background as well. So this is a track they did somewhat 10 years ago, I guess, with the reggae singer called Colonel Campbell. So. The guy was here last year, so I'll tell him that you like his music. So obviously these are two dudes from Berlin, which couldn't be more far away from Jamaica, and it's like their interpretation of what Jamaican music is. What does Jamaica mean to you? Are both of your parents from Jamaica?
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I have.
Do you go there a lot?
A long time ago. Yeah, I think Jamaica comes to everybody because there are more Jamaicans outside Jamaica than there are here, and literally over the last I ain't been there for 23 years or so. And most of my family that I met when I over there, they're over here. Yeah. Some legally, some illegally. So I don't see all of them, and that's telling the truth. I don't see them much at all. I don't know where they are.
So how come you haven't been there in like 23 years? I mean, obviously you could afford a train ticket and go there and just be there.
Yeah, I think it's because the last time I was there, it was I had a very powerful, moving experience. You know, and I think I got to be ready to attend to the Roots Manuva, as it were. You know, it's being able to, because it's got a quite emotional pull. It's quite a massive. It had a big effect on me. You know, going there, it just kind of clears up some of the cobwebs that city life can thrust on people without you even realizing. So, I mean, you know, it's the time is coming. I've got children now, and I'd like to take them there, and I'd like to have a base there. So,
would you consider yourself a Jamaican, or you?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
A UK Jamaican, maybe, but definitely not a Jamaican. No.
Yeah. And so, like, Jamaica's, I mean, if you think about it, it's incredible. It's such a small island, and so much great music comes out of that, and so much influential music as well. What do you think is so special about the place?
I don't know. It's just. I always muck about and say, well, it's one of the first islands to revolt against the powers that be. Yeah. So and there was a general, in the travel and the whole kind of forced movement of the people from Africa to Jamaica. They tend to have put the most troublesome people in Jamaica. So I think that whole rebel spirit is. It's just intertwined into the social fabric of who Jamaicans are, and just different outlets. When you oppress people of any creed, or it tends to bring out a resilience, and I think that surfaces in their creativity and their ability to still be alive.
What's like? You were born here, right, in London?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
when did your parents come here?
Probably in the early 60s.
Okay. I reckon your father is or was a preacher. Is that true?
Yeah, he's a lay preacher. Yep.
Yeah. So did you have sort of a very religious upbringing?
Not a very religious. The church was the social group or social community activity that I was most attached to. Like in church, our church wasn't like the Church of England or the Catholic Church where you just go on Sunday for 1 hour and that's it. Our church was more, you went like 3 times on Sunday. You also did a Bible study on Friday. It was more heavy. It was more encompassing of your whole life.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a weird thing, but do you think there's that your father being a preacher has ever influenced?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely growing up seeing my dad speaking to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And also having a dad that didn't like mumbling. Like, a lot of kids just talk, whine. You had to address my dad properly. That helped in, experimenting with tonal expressions,
Yeah. So is there an element of, if you rap, could you somehow compare that to what your father did as a preacher?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's conveying a message and, messing around with the different, conceptual nuances and playing with language and being able to deliver a joke or spinning a yarn.
What part is it that you like most about rapping? Is it more the writing, like expressing the thoughts, or is it more the performance level? Because, I've seen you perform maybe like 5 or 6 times, and to be very honest, I've seen great shows, and I've seen shows which were equally great, but you seemed kind of nervous and not 100% comfortable on stage. Is that true? Would you agree on that?
I'm not a natural show-off, but at the same time, I like the sound of my voice. Yeah. I like the sound of my own voice. So,
You like the sound of your voice?
I like the sound of my own voice.
Isn't that very, very unusual? Like, don't most people, when they first hear their voice, they're like,
but I'm not a natural. I'm not a natural show-off. So, I think what is considered the templates or the confines of a good performance, I don't always get right. I need the right elements around me. I've got a one-track mind when it comes to performance, and I just get the best sound out. So even if my back's turned to a crowd, or if I never address them, I don't just get the best sound out. So it's not no. I think my best performances are when I am nervous, and I don't really get that nervous. I get very irritated by like a bad sound system or just if morale around the crew is not so good, or if the audience haven't been treated well, or if security, I take things on too much. I really need to work on that and just work on delivering, outside whatever goes on.
Do you like the whole traveling part of it? I mean,
not really. I like going out, seeing different places, but the waiting around is a pain in the ass. Like technically, it could just for the space of like 100 hour and 20 minutes, you could be waiting around and traveling for 2 days. It is really quite a weird, unnatural scenario to be, and then have to just have a switch on moment and just turn it on and be Mr. Life of the party. It's like Jesus. It's really, and it's mad because it's so important now, because the live is such an important aspect of it, and it's like, oh.
You mean financially?
Yeah, it's like everyone has to kind of,
Were you surprised when you first played shows outside of the UK? Because obviously your music has a very specific UK, maybe even London feel to it. But then again, you're one of those guys who actually tours a lot, is very popular in other countries in Europe. Like you could always play a good show in Germany and these places. Were you surprised to see how people react to the music, or was it more like, yeah, I'm the shit one? I'm not that surprised.
Yeah, it's more of a surprise to see what just different areas, different areas that take to different nuances of track. Some audiences are just into the most obvious things, and then I don't know, the different places in the world of I think in the UK there is a tendency to have shows which are just about the loudness. It's not about the detail. You just get out there and you can scream and shout and everyone's shouting back. But some shows that I've done recently over the years have really, because the catalogue has grown, it has different intensity, and people demand a different kind of performance. They want certain tracks done that are more just about the word. They literally don't even want to hear the music. They just want to hear the words again, replicated as closely to the record as possible.
You said before that you're very bad with set lists. Why is that?
Oh, because I like the spur of the moment, and the stage is where I try to live out those imaginary inner characters, the inner me's, and it changes. For one performance, I might feel like, what's his name, that guy, Morrissey. For another performance, I might want to bring out my inner James Brown. For the next, I might want to bring out my inner Snoop Dogg. It changes. I might want to be Lady Gaga the next minute. So.
I would love to get to know your inner Lady Gaga. Well, maybe not. Maybe not.
But it's all there. It's like it all depends on the circumstance and where you are. And especially with a live band. So like if I'm doing a show at Glastonbury and it's the headline act is Oasis and I'm playing in some kind of no man's land part of the bill, I'm gonna play into that, and I'm gonna have a little indie wine somewhere, But if the top of the bill is Basement Jacks, I'm definitely gonna have a little jam in somewhere in the set that's gonna be four to the floor, hardcore. I like to mutate.
Yeah. So you perform a lot with a guy called Ricky Rankin, is that true? Yeah. So, and he's also part of what you call the Banana Clan, is that true as well? So what exactly is Banana Clan? Is that like a label? Is that your friends, or what? I think it's a posse? What is
for me, the subtext of it is the sound system. But in today's world, where you can't just have two turntables and some speakers, and it's all about having a web presence. So I say it's a multimedia platform. That's what it is. It's not just a record label. Yes, we do press up vinyl and have like pre-release vinyls and dub plates that are available for people to buy limited edition. And there is a download shop that's not connected to iTunes. You have to seek out this shop through the website, and we do podcasts, and and we're building up a catalogue of music that will be more available worldwide, because at the moment things are a bit hard to get hold of, and releases are sporadic. But that's how I kind of wanted the whole kind of apparatus of the situation to be less corporate and more kind of like an arts collective, of a test marketing ground for greater things to come before I turn into a crazy money grabbing executive, you know.
You seem to be quite fascinated with the whole internet kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I want to learn. You know, this is the reason why I'm here today. You know, because I would like to know. You know.
Yeah. So maybe we could turn the whole. Usually, the participants get to ask questions after lecture. So maybe we could turn this around. Is there any question that you have for those people who know about that sort of stuff that people our age don't have a clue about?
So, like in my time, it was all about a cassette tape with 3 songs on it. What's your natural or your first instinct or your knee-jerk instinct towards getting the attention of getting your music out there? Because to me now, it just seems like, what the hell do you do? I wouldn't know where to start.
Anybody would want to answer that question? That's the mic.
What?
Just
blogs. So you wouldn't put out a piece of vinyl.
Don't look at me.
So.
Depends what I think for everybody, blogs and podcasts is the most accessible thing. But if you want DJs to play your record and then get it out to people, then
but you have the 45s of your band. I mean, I get it. It kind of depends. If in your specific case, it does work having the 45s. But if you can't press a 45, if you can't even press a dubplate, you gotta get it out there some way.
I don't know about the difference on this side of the ocean, but in North America, like seemingly every DJ I know has switched to Serato or Ableton or some other format. And if you've got a heater, it's a heater. It's like you're not gonna and if as a new artist, obviously I would love to press 12 inches, but it's really hard to find places even in North America where you can get dub plates made, and then it's extremely expensive. So if you can,
in Portugal, there's only like one store.
It's on my blog.
It's all about the blog.
Yeah, do you have a blog? You don't, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So that's on the website?
Yeah, that's it's not very good, but I've been doing it myself.
Is that the very essence of a blog?
The essence of it is not being good.
That's sort of the idea of a blog, isn't it? But maybe I got it wrong. I'm just too old for that stuff. And any other questions?
Yeah, just like it's too much. So I was just like, what did you think you'll get out of this? What did you think? Not me being here, but out of this whole project. You know, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I think this will be, I don't know, man. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is like, what is the pièce de résistance of you know, you got one of the probably the better facilities, recording. You can do everything here. What do you expect to get out of this? And it's like, what, you've been chosen out of like 230,000 people across the world.
I'm Mayali. I think, well, with a lot of people that I know, I'm from New Zealand, and a lot of people, I have lots of friends that have done this before, and a lot of them seem to, I mean, aside from all the get connections, learn this and that, blah, 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 they all seem to have, maybe they already had it before coming here, but since that they have a desire to have their own voice and they kind of have a direction. And I think maybe the 2 weeks of just being in a really intensely creative and being free to do whatever the hell you want kind of can inspire people to just go, that's where I want to go, and not be afraid to just go for it. And so I hope to be able to have that sort of focus and direction from coming through a bit of something like this, which is very open and able to go wherever I want with it. That's for me anyway. I don't know. Do you have an idea?
Well, I don't know. I think before I came here, I'm not very good with the technical side of things, and just coming here and listening to the productions of a lot of the participants whose tracks are really good, it's just been really inspiring to just try and find your own sound and to do stuff that you've never actually done before. Kid Carnival was recording my vocals and I don't sing. I was just making weird noises on it, and he found it cool. I was like, okay, yeah. So it's just really inspiring to be here. You didn't ask him for the vocals.
Oh, she wants me to ask if I can get you to record on a tune of mine later on, so maybe I'll be able to get that too. But yeah, we'll see what happens anyway. You might not like it,
But like maybe that's the question right there. Even do you work a lot with other people? Like, is that?
Oh yeah, because of the net and stuff, definitely. Yeah. But like for for like mixtapes and all that kind of stuff, I'm up for doing anything.
Totally. I mean, you feature
just
a lot
as long as the vibe is there.
Totally. But
But
I know you feature a lot of like other people's records, but is that something you naturally try to create when you're in the studio, like being around other people, or are you more of like
I
a loner
always
when it comes
have. I've like from the my first experience of being in the studio was a community recording studio, so there was always a band of people around, and a kind of a situation like this, but more of not as formal as this, But I had this in another form, a more lo-fi kind of ghetto environment that was a little bit more dangerous than, this is wonderful. This is like, in the midst of the hairier times in Brixton, trying to just get on and learn how to use the bits and pieces. I wished for a situation like this.
Yeah. So how do you expose yourself to like new stuff? To like new music and new influence? Because if you look at the records, obviously there's so much going into your sound. How do you actually find that? Like, is that something you try to do consciously? Like, I need to listen to that stuff. Like, for me, for example, I tend to stay in my comfort zone when it comes to listening to music. I listen to the stuff that I know, and I would somehow want somebody to tell me, come on, you need to listen to that. Are you good at that, or do you have people who say like maybe you should listen to, I don't know, Afghan?
It's my biggest fear is not knowing what's the new thing. So I'm always listening to it, regardless of whether I like it or not. I just have my ear out for it. I think I get more inspired by listening to new things than just create. Than sticking to what I know. It's always been something that I've been driven by, is like trying to find that new form of music.
You also run a night, isn't it? Like at this place that you guys went to yesterday, the book club. What's the concept behind that night?
Yeah, it's called Go Bananas, and it's at the book club, and it's just the concept is there is no concept. It's just another mutated, futuristic sound system night. We try and get a PA down there, and upstairs is you can't have too much noise, but there's some laptop DJs going on upstairs, and we try to get some visual installations, and it's just kind of an informal night that will hopefully grow into to maybe a tent and maybe its own festival.
Good. So you had your time now to ask questions. Are there any questions from you guys?
Hello. I've always wanted to ask you this. So you do the production on all of your stuff, isn't it?
Not every last track. Like the percentage that we generally use is that I have to do, well, because of the deal that I've got, I have to actually physically write at least 70% of the albums, the Roots Manuva albums.
Yeah, well, what I was wondering is that the production is never credited to Roots Manuva. It's always...
Yeah, some of them are. But I always, when I first started, I always wanted it to, because of the nature of the community, I always wanted to make people think it was somebody else, because it was never always seen as a good thing.
That's a UK thing, trying to be anonymous and all.
Yeah, it was never seen as a good thing to have the person rapping, or it was an easy target to knock a record off because it's got the person rapping and producing on it. It's just like, it was very frowned on in the early days. But nowadays it doesn't seem like it really matters, really.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Hi. Just sorry to go back to the witness, but I remember you were saying that it didn't get much radio play, it weren't A-listed or anything. But from my memory, listening to XFM at the time, it was A-listed by XFM.
A-listed?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It was being played at least 3 times a day for weeks, and you did a live show for them as well. And it was just really weird because for a station that champions indie schmindy music, here was you and Witness. I mean, how did you're saying you didn't know about it, but then that obviously created a big wave just through, that was the first time that I heard that track, and it opened my eyes to a whole new world of British hip hop. So I just wanted to ask what your feelings on that were.
My feelings on it being A-listed and not mine.
Well, but not just that, but just how it opened a lot of people's eyes and ears to that sound, and they wouldn't have otherwise have heard it, in my case anyway, just from listening to XFM at the time.
Yeah, I suppose that's the ultimate quest of me, the artist, is to go on a uncharted journey and entice people that normally wouldn't give it a second chance. You know, that's the ultimate compliment.
It's quite strange though to hear you say that you just knock that together just to please some people.
I've been correct. I've been told off a lot of times for saying that because I've been sat down in the corner and said, well, you might have knocked it together, but it's the accumulated experiments that I've had over the years that allowed me to do it that fast. You know, it's like someone told me that song was building in me since I was 15 years old. So it's not like I'm encouraging everyone, just go in the studio and just knock something out in 4 hours. You still need to experiment, to go off like that and be as proud as your fart, you know.
Have you ever worked on one song for a very long time? I think none of your music, also the details are there, but it just doesn't feel like you would spend very, very long time on it.
I'm getting into that now. Yeah, with the first album, there was some things that had been lying about for ages. More the second album was just more, it was my first period of time of having enough money to buy champagne and decent quality weed. So there was a lot of like, hey, let's just record, hey, come on. Just get in there, get out, get back to the club, you know. So it was, but I want to capture that immediacy. But now I am getting more into the laboured thing. Like the whole process since the last album's Slime and Reason it's been more. I think I'm managing the whole kind of studio torture a little bit. You know, I'm actually. Whereas back in the days, I would take a basic sketch from home and get to the studio and probably fall asleep or get high and just leave it to the engineer. Nowadays, I'm sitting and painstakingly going through every bit of the process.
Yeah.
And actually, doing, spending like weeks on just the hi-hat or,
Do you still go out a lot? Like, do you go to clubs at all? I think you had your time when you obviously said that before and had your little love affair with narcotics or whatever. So do you still go out a lot and do a lot of partying? Was that sort of over?
No, those days of my partying is back to just listening to music or listening to the radio. But the days of going out for days and days on end have truly gone.
Well, yeah, I guess you're looking at the right person there. So any more questions? We have Mike.
Hello. Just wondering about your process as a MC producer. I mean, probably don't work the same way on every single track, but I guess generally, do ideas come to you more as the lyricist / vocalist, or as the producer, and you make a beat and then you try and put, vocals over top of it, or build your beat around your vocals. And the second part of that is, as a rapper, what to you makes a good beat? That's a very broad question, I realize.
Yeah, I find it a lot easier to do the two things in isolation. I find it easy to write a rhyme, but I find it much harder to find a beat to match the rhyme. So it's easier for me to have the beat first, but it's a constant jumble. I will, when it's me trying to do something, because I do get a lot of pressure from the record, because a lot of the time I would love to be able to just deliver an album that just was 12 different beats by 12 people I like, but from my label, they're always like, you've got to do it. That's what gives it definitive edge, or whatever it is. That's been the thing that sold me. So I think. And was the other part of the question?
Just, I guess, what makes a good beat? Very broad question.
I think that's really hard. A good beat, I think, is something that calls a tonal value, something that has the space in it for a vocal. Because there are a lot of, I think today with all the technology, there are a lot, because, back in the days you only had a 4-track, the kind of music that was coming out had a lot more space in it. So today, because you can use infinite amounts of tracks, music doesn't really have that much space in it. And there's a lot more music that has the lyric, even if there's no words in it, the lyric and the motive and the hook is coming from the clash of samples or synths. So yeah, to me, a good beat is what actually leaves the space for words to breathe.
Thank you.
You said before that you're kind of more playing with a live band in now, as opposed to just DJs or whatever. How do you feel that as an MC? How does that feel different to maybe what you were doing before? And what do you see as the positives / negatives of each scenario?
Well, the positives is that the recordings are just a reference point to work up from, and you can literally do like a live remix of the recordings. So the negative is that for people that are hooked into the recordings, sometimes the live performances don't stay true to the recordings, because it's just it's not always that easy to, you know, just with the general motifs that are in traditional dance music, is like the really heavy kick and the overemphasized snare, and you know, you can't always get that with a live band. You know, we kind of, that's the only drawback. But you know, I'm working on it, and you know, trying to do an amalgamation of the live sounds, but still with triggering samples and synthesizers. But you know, it's kind of to get the perfect blend of the organic and the machines together.
Cool. Thank you.
Hello. Just wondering, as a London MC, what's your take on grime?
Yeah, I love the spirit of it. You know, it's you know, it's not. I can't say that I listen to it all day, every day, or I even listen to it to an hour of it. But I just love the attitude of it. Just like I like punk records, but
Sure.
You know,
The energy, really.
yes, the energy.
Absolutely. Okay, cheers.
Yeah, hello. Are you like looking forward to making records for the next like 20, 30, 40 years, being a septuagenarian MC, doing that? Or do you have like other ambitions that you want to do outside of music?
Oh, I would love to make records for 30 years. That would be great, man. That's a proper dream.
Was he trying to say that you're too old now?
Yeah, I probably am too old to have asked lot of people.
Yeah, too old. Yeah.
You know, but you know, to do that, you know, to looking at, you know, people like Lee Scratch Perry and, you know, other people that are not here anymore, James Brown, and people that have those long careers, is definitely like a model that I aspire to be able to get away with it for that long. But yeah, there are loads of other little things that I am toying with doing, you know, like getting more into writing, and you know, because the whole, it's weird that I got into music and the whole studio, the application of studio, I wanted to do because I thought I could make a living from making music for adverts, and adverts is one of the things that I haven't got out of my 10 years of being actually signed and published. I haven't got one advert, so I don't make much money from sync licensing at all. So, and that's what I wanted to do, you know. And it's weird. We really can't predict these things, but you know, yeah, it definitely. It's been a nice surprise that rapping pays the mortgage and pays. You know, I pay taxes, you know, through rapping, which is a very weird concept, you know, 20 years ago.
Any more questions?
So, hi, I'm Moises from Mexico. I was just going to ask you, so now we live in a very globalized society. So what is your take on, I mean, like UK has a really, really particular sound. You can kind of trace it back from where all the genres kind of mesh. So what do you think the future of that is going to be? Do you believe in maybe like a global sound towards that, or in rapping, or just like any kind of music?
Yeah, I think it's part of a whole kind of crazy tapestry of the evolution of language itself. It's gonna lead to beyond the genres. It's gonna lead to a new language, because people are so connecting. You know, just the evolution of phonetics will create planet Earth music. You know, I'm quite excited about that. You know, even though I probably won't be here to hear it, but it's a nice astral projection that I that I like. And I think an event like today kind of captures where that is going, because this is it's quite an incredible thing that you're doing there.
Thanks.
No more questions then. So maybe to round this off, you said before that like a good beat needs to have the space to let your words breathe. So do you have a particular good example for that from your last record? Because we haven't heard anything from your last record. Like the Slime and Reason.
Let the word breathe. That was in the creation of it.
Come on, just name a song.
Name a song.
So give it up for Roots Manuva.